Hey, everybody, this is Amanda Coulong at Faction, and I am here yet again with our wonderful founder and executive chairman, Luke Norris. And Luke, thank you for letting me put you in the hot seat yet again today.
That's my favorite seat.
I will remember that. Okay. Today, I want to talk about a topic I'm seeing crop up everywhere lately, and that's data ops. And I would like to speak to data ops overall and also where multi-cloud may fit within that. But before we get started, I want to just set the groundwork in terms of a clear definition. And this is what I found from Gartner. They said that data ops is a collaborative data management practice that's focused on improving the communication, integration, and automation of data flows between data managers and data consumers across an organization. So I would say it sounds like at its core, the essence of data ops is really about streamlining the way data is managed. Would you agree with that? Or how would you summarize data ops?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time talking about this to vast organizations. I find data ops is sort of a catch-all for the baton handoff between the people that are generating the data, processing the data, and then hoping for an outcome that can drive a business decision from the data. And I really find that data ops is setting the groundwork, the framework for that to be a smooth transition, giving people an idea on what their part of the data enrichment and data value chain is, so that an actual data pipeline and data movement can actually happen for a business outcome. I think just like, and I think we're going to talk about this next, like DevOps, it can have a vast array of stuff, but ultimately it's that unbreakable chain of actually starting the data and then getting the value out of the data.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, you did actually jump ahead to what I was going to ask next, which is, a lot of people, when they hear the term data ops, it seems like they think DevOps for obvious reasons. Isn't it just DevOps for data? And it seems like it's much more than that. But on a baseline, would it be data analytics can achieve with data ops what software development did with DevOps?
Yeah, I think this actually has considerable more legs in the chain.
Yeah.
And first off, what I mean by that is you actually, when you talk about automating, say, software development tools, test and regression, push to production, that has a very neat DevOps and then DevSecOps. When you inject security into there, et cetera. With data ops, you are really talking about all the way from an IoT sensor practically generating data to a handoff to where it's pushed to, what ETL framework, what actual movement, what changing of the data, what munging of the data has to happen. I mean, there's just quite a bit more in there because data in itself is useless typically when it's raw, and it's this actual enrichment of it in the process through the full operations chain. Once again, to get to typically data science or some sort of analytics service actually gives you value. So it's far more than that. I actually don't love sort of the comparison because it almost pigeonholes data ops. I also, I'm a founder of a multi-cloud company, right? So I always think of like DevOps gets exponentially more complicated when you talk about multi-cloud DevOps. It's near impossible with all the different tool sets, capabilities, SaaS functionalities, et cetera. Where multi-cloud data ops, it's not that it's not more complex. I'm sure there is, but of course here at Faction, we try to take the complexity out. But it's exponentially more valuable. Just the tool sets, the outcomes, the value-driven capabilities of the various public clouds can make it so that if you're able to move data to a public cloud or to an on-premise cloud, and then be able to take advantage of whether the best tool may sit, whether it's Amazon, Microsoft, Google, or on-prem, and not have to reprocess that data, you're going to get this exponential more value, business decision value, business analytics value, AI decision process value, you name it. And that is really exciting because I think in maybe multi-cloud DevOps, the juice maybe isn't worth the squeeze per se. In multi-cloud data ops, holy cow, the little extra effort you put into it to make that data available across all the tool sets, all the feature sets, really can get that exponential value.
So you just sort of made me think back on some of the different inflection points that we've seen throughout the years. This reminds me of when the Agile Manifesto came out back in 2001, and then DevOps seemed to come after that. And now we're at what feels like another inflection point. So do you think we're ready for this inflection point?
Yeah, I think it's already happened maybe 3 or 4 different times. I think the snowflakes and the Databricks brought together amazing AI ML services and just sort of the value that would come from data lakes, data warehouses, data lakehouses. Then you've seen this amazing capability for business intelligence and additional service layers that sit on top of it. Supply chains doing predictive analytics. C3 AI's got some amazing capabilities in that. Then you look at this, as our CTO would say, pre-Cambrian explosion of AI tools and generative AI, where you can prompt things and actually get these huge outcomes. And those are going to be tied directly to your unique data set and unique model you train. So I think we've already had maybe 2 or 3 of these inflection points. And I think we're hitting a third major inflection point that is really pointing out the overall value when it comes to data ops. And like I said, multi-cloud data ops.
Yeah, that's a really fair point. And yes, oh my goodness, don't get Matt started on generative AI. That's a separate video, right?
Yeah.
So let's dig a little bit deeper, okay? Let's get into some of the more specifics of a data ops approach. One of the things that you hear all the time, and I know these are buzzwords and we use them too, but a data first approach or being data driven, it feels like this is really relevant to the data ops discussion. So, what do we mean when we as Faction say data driven, and how does that tie into our multi-cloud approach and ultimately tie into data ops?
Yeah, so it is my core belief, and I believe, therefore, Faction's belief on the business of the future, in digital transformation or even post-digital transformation, is going to be driven by data. Their decision basis, their outcomes, their value chains are all going to be driven by data. And this is the entire world. This is everything from pharmaceuticals, drug development, patient outcomes, oil and gas and energy companies doing exploration. I mean, data is truly at the center of everything. So we're really here to be here to help these large data-driven companies, find new outcomes and capabilities. That sort of leads into what I would further say is our data-first approach. When you're making a decision around technology, data should be the first thing you're thinking of in the decision point that you surround all of your capabilities and functionality around. And of course, we have our own opinion on that as a multi-cloud data set, making sure the multi-cloud data service is separated from the public clouds, et cetera. And then, if you tie that all the way back to the next step, how is the staff, the people on the streets, the capabilities actually gonna then derive a data-driven organization through a data-first architecture? And that's where sort of data ops would come into play. If you've set the groundstone, for it to be this data-first architecture, then your data ops also has to be data-first. What do I mean by that? Well, instead of putting the data in a public cloud, if you had, quote unquote, a cloud-first strategy, a data-first strategy would say, I want to put that data in a neutral place where it can be processed, ETL, transformed, whatever. So now it can be presented to the application, to the service, so an outcome can be derived. That's a huge paradigm shift. That means now that data ops is actually putting the data in a place that they control, they maintain, they have sovereignty on. And then the application or the data scientist person can actually have that data presented to them to have an outcome. That minor twist makes it so that the outcomes and value that can be derived from the data, as I talked about earlier, can be exponentially higher now, because the tool set, the innovation, the capabilities, it's literally limitless that can access and derive that from the data.
Yeah, really fair point there. And it seems like many of the challenges that are happening right now are because, and tell me if you agree with this, are because data is often an afterthought, or there's way too much emphasis focused just on the cloud itself or the apps rather than starting with the data. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you nailed it. You nailed the nail right on the head, as they would say. I think over the last 10 years, the whole industry has been cloud first and application portability. How do I take this monolithic app that's been written on-prem into a multi-service, cloud-driven application? And therefore, they only thought of the app. And then once the app was reformed, all the data came over to it. And then they realized that that app is stuck with that data, but another app has to access that data. That's causing a problem. Then that application or that data would be derived or would have a better outcome if we could have a different app using it, but now they're stuck in this cloud versus this cloud where they want to use it. And that's created just multiple levels of complication. Maybe the app in a public cloud does not cost too much, and it made sense maybe to move it back on-prem, but now the data's in the public cloud, and that would be too hard or too lengthy or too expensive to move that data out. And it's just this jumble of problems, from streaming to you name it, where if they thought of the application first versus the data first, they found themselves in a significant problem. One of my favorite parts of my job is actually going into these organizations and helping them unwind some of that, get that data out, get it in a data first approach where it can still tie to the application that they have in the public cloud, and then help them with a very proactive strategy on where's the application best fit, but more importantly, where's the data best fit to reside, live, and flourish for the outcomes that these organizations want.
Yeah, you undo, what is it? The spaghetti architecture. I love to throw that one out there. I just have to.
Yes, people throw it against the wall and see what sticks, and
right.
Yes, we're there to set up a strategy for them.
Exactly. And you touched on a number of the challenges or just the pain points too, right? Just the data silos, the data sprawl, the duplicate copies, all the fees that are associated with that, and just not being able to trust your data. What's the point of having this discussion at all if people can't trust their data? So that's dovetailing nicely into what I would like to speak to next is just that notion of DataOps observability. That's another piece here, and being able to track the health of your data at every single stage. So I believe one part of that is data lineage, right? Is that something you'd like to speak to?
Yeah, I was just on earlier this week a conversation with a global pharmaceutical company, and they brought their data lineage and data governance actual issues to the forefront. And it's had me thinking all week about this, but I put everything in the umbrella of data governance. So
Right.
if you don't know what your data is, you don't know who's accessing it, if you don't know why they're accessing it and how they're accessing it, and you don't have a catalog of it, then all of it sort of breaks down. So once you have this data governance, then how are you able to observe who's doing what, when, and how? And then also, how are you able to prove that the data that came in is, even though it's gone through formations and changes to be usable, that it's still sort of the trusted source of data, it's still valid, that the people that had access to it didn't change it in a way that didn't. And that whole lineage discussion sort of comes into play. And when you're dealing with R&D or compliance data, you're a global national bank, these questions spawn more questions and more problems. This global bank I was actually on the phone with this morning has 11 different government compliances that they have to manage for all their books and record data, all their compliance data. That data then has to be copied. Yeah, it has to be copied across multiple clouds, has to be copied back every night on-prem, has to be recertified. And then it takes 36 hours for that certification process to go back on, re-ETL it, resend it back into the public clouds, rehab it as the next books and records subset of that data that the applications can be derived. A 36-hour change around for a global national bank is far, far from a data-driven organization at that point. We're trying to help them get that down to 1 hour, and actually from 9 copies to 2 copies. So a tremendous value difference from there. But more importantly, whether we save them a cost because it's only 2 copies and there's not transfer fees versus 9 copies, it's the fact that the organization will go from that 36 hours to 1 hour for updating all of their subsidiaries, all of their downstream, their customer outcomes. That is the massive difference. And it's real exciting if you don't hear my voice, but it all ties back to what you just said there. How do you have a single trusted data governance, a single trusted observatory, and a single trusted lineage path that you can actually state on your data? And once again, multi-cloud makes that a lot harder, but the value, if you've done it right, is exponentially better.
I can always tell you're excited because your voice gets a lot faster, Luke.
It's a compliment, but yes.
So yeah, and now I think it's a good point to sort of explain what Faction means by multi-cloud. And we do this a lot, but I want to make sure we do it again here because our definition of multi-cloud is quite different than many others that are out there. So why don't you just give the spiel really quickly here about why our version, or just what our version of multi-cloud is.
I believe the industry has taken the term multi-cloud, and what it really means, if you weren't trying to market it, is multiple clouds. When you have to put your data in a cloud provider or on-prem, and that data is separated and the data has to be synchronized there's no way to span applications and value chains across them because you have to wait for the synchronization of the data. Typically, you have one primary data set, one secondary data set, and the secondary really can't be used. And what that creates is, as you mentioned earlier, data sprawl. It creates this replication. It slows down businesses and outcomes and innovation. It has value associated with, disaster recovery, or maybe the ability to eventually move from on-prem to cloud, or from cloud back to on-prem.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all eventual architectures, not business outcomes or application and value outcomes. So here at Faction, a long time ago, we set off for this, and it's right there in the logo. If you take that one copy of data and connect the other dots, the public clouds, the on-prems, to that one copy of data, and that data is able to be presented to them so that they can all use them simultaneously. Now what you open up is a unfeathered capability of innovation of SaaS services. We just broke 500 SaaS services across the public clouds that we've certified work off of our data set as if it was a native data that sat in the public cloud. And that's just literally scratching the surface of all of the myriad of SaaS capabilities, functionality that the public clouds have, and on-premise enterprise software is still deriving and developing. And that paradigm difference from multiple clouds to multi-cloud, and a true multi-cloud, a true data-first architecture that derives that multi-cloud, is where you get this amazing level of outcomes and business value that our partners and customers are seeing. And you hear it in my voice, I guess I'm speaking fast again. It gets me to pop right out of bed, and it's just fun every day to be a part of it.
Yeah. And again, that's that single copy of data presented to all clouds and apps simultaneously. So it's trusted, it's in sync all the time, it's active data, and it's data that everybody can access at the same time. It's driving home that notion of data democratization. Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, you're not going to get that from me, but I guess the one buzzword that I should have a tattoo somewhere of is it does defy data gravity. And as these applications need to access data faster, they're growing the data because they're deriving a subset and writing back to it. Those applications and services need to be closer to the data from speed of light and latency. They need faster pipes to it. And we here at Faction have really sort of figured out the way to defy data gravity, make sure that all those applications can access it simultaneously at the speed and feeds they need, make sure you can have a replicated copy back on-prem that's in sync, and we couldn't be more excited about that.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say we've covered a data first mentality, democratizing data, trusting your data accuracy, and let's wrap this up with a big blue sky picture of what's possible. But I think you've already covered all of that, Luke.
Oh, no, you kidding me? Every week I'll come up with a new thing if possible. In one of my latest presentations with a customer, what I absolutely loved, and this customer actually brought the use case to us, was that we were able to show them once again that single repository data, compliant data as financial services that we could present to multiple clouds. And they actually had AI ML tool sets that can take voice recording and not only transcribe it, but also put all their compliancy in there. So that if somebody said something on the phone that maybe broke a rule or exceeded their capability, the automated system from one of the public clouds would immediately let them know that that happened. Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. Now, once again, and then there was even more than that. There was another AI tool that was going to do this, and another one that's going to do this, all from the data. And I was just blown away by it because, when we here at Faction can bring a multi-cloud data service and have this amazing service provider immediately glob on an amazing use case, it just blows my mind and makes it so exciting. I expect that just to be sort of the new value chain that we're able to bring with that single copy of data. And I'm hoping next week a customer blows me away with another amazing use case.
Oh, I'm sure they will. I hope they will. Well, yeah, I think we've covered all the bases here. So DataOps, streamlining the way data is managed, a true multi-cloud approach with Faction within that DataOps umbrella. It seems like they go hand in hand.
I think they absolutely do.
Well, thank you again for letting me put you in the hot seat. Everybody, our wonderful founder, Luke Norris, and I'm your host, Amanda Coulon.
Thank you much.